Look how absolutely gorgeous it is out here today. Beautiful Saturday morning on Kent Island. We just finished having our breakfast in the office and it's already 70 degrees, which mid-November I cannot believe we're still getting days this warm, but it is about to tank tomorrow, dropping honestly I think like 20 or 25 degrees. So this is going to be our last nice day of work. So of course we're trying to get every exterior project as close to completion as we can, at least until spring. But on top of that, I'm going to go through the tent right now, show you our progress of where we are at the moment and what still needs to be completed before we can get in the water. After 8 years of the nomadic life, involving crossing oceans in a 34-foot Sabre, refitting an aluminum boat, and then taking that to the Arctic Circle, we're back at it again with a brand new build. This is Matt, and I'm Jessica. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and join us every week as we start our newest project of building a 42-foot catamaran from the ground up. Alright, now that we have gotten the inside of the boat sanded down, kind of because that's pretty much an impossible task, let's go take a look through and see how far we progressed. And I was a little wrong earlier. I think I said how much we have left, and that's just way too much to cover. So why don't we just focus on what we hope to accomplish this winter. All right, well, on my way to the tent, our good friends Jeff and Cam stopped by for just a little tour to say hi, have a couple of beers, so kind of got distracted, but now we are back on track. So let's start with what we can still do here on the deck. So as you can see, we did end up cutting out all of the 4 hatches for our forward windows, I guess you could say. And I don't think it was featured in the other videos, but Matt did go through here and kind of like route the edges so that they're more rounded, and also used our Total Boat fairing compound just to give a nice smooth finish within there. But any type of acrylic that is not the hatches that we've received from Vetus will not be going in this year. It could be next summer, depending on if we come out of the tent or not, because of course we'll want to be at a lockup stage, but I think as far as that goes, there is no more that can be done this year. Then onto our side decks here. In our last episode, you'll have seen that these 2 holes here were what Matt put in the molds for our flush deck hatches, also from Vetus. So the holes were measured and cut out, and then those hatches were bonded in. I don't think we showed the whole process, so in a couple of episodes, we'll make sure to go over that. So again, this exterior work, we can't really heat this tent anymore. This above us is a propane system, but there's a leak, so we can't quite heat this area like we thought we could when we originally moved in. So let's take a walk over to starboard. And as you'll see over here, there are no holes in this deck so far other than the dagger board case right here. So Matt may or may not still be able to get those cut and the other hatch molds bonded in with the temperature still being warm. We're gonna have to see about that. It's kind of like the top of his list at least to perform before this area is too cold to kind of bond things in with the temperatures that the resins need to cure. All right, into the cockpit now, and isn't she beautiful? Really, the only thing that we even could work on here, which again is gonna be harder now as the temperatures are getting colder, because we can't really make adjustments here while this exterior temperature is too cold, but our raised helm station is going to be over here on starboard, and we hadn't finalized plans on that yet because we're just looking at different options for either having steps up or walking around. We were waiting for the Annapolis boat show to get on the HH because they have this great design where there's like an indent within the step so that you can still have the full seating area here. You don't have to sacrifice any of that for these larger steps to get up to that space. So after kind of testing that out, just getting on there, going up and down a few times with the permission of the owner, we think that's the direction that we're going to head, which also lets us push this helm station a little bit further aft, where on the production version that has the raised helm, they do put it a little closer to bulkhead 6 right here. But unfortunately it blocks the window, so we want to try and avoid that if we can. So we haven't implemented those changes yet, but it is something that we feel a lot more confident on now. There is an airfield directly across the road from us, so often, especially on nice days, there are constantly planes taking off and landing there, if you can hear that in the background. But this is our bridge deck area here, and I was actually thinking about this early this morning. It has been 11 months since we first kind of like laid out the furniture for a dry fit, if you saw from one of our videos a long time ago last winter. And we thought we were going to be spending the summer starting to bond those pieces in, which of course, as you can see here, has not happened. The only items that we have bonded in so far is the outboard section of the galley on port side, and then a little bit of what's going to be our navigation station on starboard. So we knew this area was not going to change, kind of like regardless of anything. And of course there are the 2 walkways down into our guest hall. This here closer to bulkhead 6 on the aft side leads into the bigger queen size bunk there. And then if you go forward, the steps that lead down to the smaller forward bunk. And we have glassed in part of the navigation station because I think we mentioned before we did lower the height of this from what the normal production version calls for. And the nav station, which is going to run here, we've decided to raise it. So this is all going to be one usable height between them. And the reason that we decided against starting to bond in any of these furniture pieces is because we still have to make decisions on some of the electrical items that are going to be going in here. And next week we're going to have a special episode for you, which hopefully starts to answer that question more. But we did want to do a dry fit of those items before we start building around it, because we're going to want to know where mounts go, what kind of space that we're going to need. So we didn't want to have any of those items be an afterthought to the furniture. We'd rather have the option to kind of like build the furniture around it. But again, we have something really exciting coming next week. We should get a lot of answers to those questions, and then once we return home, then we can hopefully kind of close off some of these areas, heat the interior space, and start building out this bridge deck. But if I kind of like swap images of what the completed version is from the factory, you'll be able to see that we do have another section of the galley running fore and aft here, and then the inboard side of that is a partial settee for a seat, which then does turn into an L settee and runs into the navigation station. And then in the starboard, kind of like aft corner of the bridge deck, is a media station, which again, like once we decide on like batteries and electronics, then we can start to section this area off, because we're still going to have access from our owner's hole, which will be a opening cabinet here, and then some access from this section here. But that is not something that we like to guess on, just to be able to start building it out, especially being so close to hopefully figuring out exactly what's going to go in there. Well, after our first day at the Annapolis Boat Show and going to see all of our favorite vendors, you can start to get a feel of how many things we still have left to purchase for this build. So we would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Established Titles. So of course, when I am sick like this, I'm in no condition to leave the marina, especially to go shopping. But let's say that in 2 or 3 days, I had my great aunt's birthday coming up and I have nothing to give her before I go. The great thing is that I could go to establishedtitles.com and get her a ladyship with anywhere between 1 to 10 square feet of property, and I could make her a lady in Scotland, based on an old tradition where landowners are called lairds, or lords or ladies. And then my great aunt could join me being a lady in Scotland. Now, this doesn't make you actual nobility or royalty, but I know you're still looking at me with my own ladyship right here being like, dang, I wish I was her. Yeah, I know. Plus, the first 200 people that purchase using my link will get their plots of land right next to mine, so we could build our whole little Scottish community and maybe even get Claire from Outlander to come so she can be my healer and get rid of this cold. Plus, with every order, a tree will be planted through charities such as Trees for the Future or One Tree Planted to support global afforestation. Anyway, Established Titles is having their pre-Black Friday sale going on right now, so make sure to visit them using the code establishedtitles.com/MJSailing. We'll have that link in the description box below, along with the code MJSailing to get an additional 10% off their already low sale prices. So make sure to go ahead and check them out, and I promise by the next time I get around to this, I'll be feeling better and we're going to have some fun again. And now down into the owner's hall. Don't you love that is a nice 75 degrees in here today? What I can't believe is that we're inside here sweating today as like we're kind of working and cleaning, but what I really can't believe is that just tomorrow, less than 24 hours from now, it's going to have a 25-degree drop. Alright, so when we come down from the stairs, again, there is this area that we have not built out the interior yet because although the door here is going to slide open and closed, so this will be covered a majority of the time. Once you slide that door closed, we'll have access into this area. Perfect spot for electronics, but we just need to decide how deep this area is going to be before kind of like sectioning it off here and having a little bit of storage from what's going to be a door opening here from our bridge deck. One of our clothing cabinets here, you can tell I have not touched in months. But one of the things I have gotten done in this area is started to add the very first coats of fairing compound to the edge of the cabinet, and what's going to be probably like the world's tiniest seat here, but that's cool. And then the entrance into mine and Matt's master bunk back here. And with the overhead, we are going to have a drop down, so luckily I don't have to worry about fairing out any of this. And then as we make our way forward to turn around here, this is going to be kind of our hanging locker. You may have seen us before starting to add some of the conduit and pipes, which are going to go above the chamfer panel, so that area would have a false back anyway, closing it off from what we're going to be using. And on the exterior, I have gotten my very first coat of fairing compound on there, so still see a lot of the rough lines that need to get sanded off. And we haven't touched these doors yet, which eventually will be veneered. And then there's the deck board case, which I know a lot of even performance boats just put like a vinyl over it. We're not going to do it. We're going to fair this and paint it, which has been a lot of fun for me. And then this area here, which these two pieces are structural webbing. So on production versions, they kind of use them as shells. I think we're going to just close this area off, and still debating on if this is going to be a fuel line because our master hull here is now electric engine only. But moving even further forward into the master head, you can see bulkhead 5 here now has been, well, at least a coat of fairing compound on it, as well as bulkhead 4. And these cabinets, oh my gosh, I have been working on for like 10 months now, and I keep saying that I'm going to get primer in here so I at least know how it works with this, but every time I start to, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get fairing compound on a different area. I'm going to get fairing compound on like a totally different one, because we can close in this area in the winter and heat it, and areas back here are going to be a little harder, so I was like, I'm going to quick prep those and at least get the first 1 or 2 coats on while it's still warm enough to do so. So I've kind of been ignoring this, but as soon as we get back from our trip, I think I'm going to focus on this and at least start getting our buildable primer on that, so that is definitely high on my list. As well as fairing out our master shower, which I haven't touched in quite some time. Haven't even put the first coats on these support wedges here, but definitely going to work on that a little bit harder this winter once we can close this area off. So as you can see, I still have plenty of work to keep myself busy in this master hull here. One of the big discussions between Matt and I as we're doing fairing, like right behind me here, bulkhead 5, leading from the hull into the vanity. I have gone over this so many times with my Durablock sanding things, and even like with the Dykem powder. And until we get primer on it, I really don't think we're going to know how much that buildable primer fills in imperfections, or how really, I guess you could say, like anal we have to be at this stage. So I'm just spending a lot of time on it, potentially more than I need to. So I think as soon as we can, we're going to start getting some primer on these areas, so when I start to branch out to other areas, I know how much I need to do like right away, and then what the buildable primer is going to do to kind of like fill in my mistakes. And then lastly, we have our guest hall over here, which Matt has been working on more. And then I think I'm going to turn my attention to the forward bunk here pretty soon. All right, the stairs leading down toward the master hall, and we do have the shared wet head in between here. And Matt has been building the holding tank here, which there has been footage, and I will cover more in a future episode. All right, still a struggle sometimes with power and extension cords, which if you're kind of curious, we've had a number of people say, like, I would love to come help. In the winter months, it gets especially hard because we need to run extension cords for lights, we need them for heaters, we need them for sanders, and even Matt and I oftentimes are fighting over who gets that power source. If you were to bring in another person or two, it just doesn't work. So we obviously appreciate all the offers for help. It's just that we can't power more than a 2-person operation here. But I guess you could call this like the guest master cabin because it is the other queen size bed, which does mirror ours. And I'm showing you this one because we're a little bit further along. Last week's episode, you will have seen that Matt was starting to put in the overhead hatches here. And we did also cut out the aft side one, the episode before that. So on this side, Matt has completed them, and he was hoping to do that the same on our owner's hole while we still have this nice weather and we don't have to heat the entire temperature of the tent to get that work done on deck. But one of the things that Matt can continue kind of like over the winter, because we can put some cloth over this entrance here into bulkhead 6, the aft cabin, is there is one more structural bulkhead which kind of goes right at the aft edge of that hatch there. And once he gets that in, we can probably do the other foam core portion that closes off the area, which will be cockpit storage. You know, if you look in here, you can see that this only goes as far down as the seat. We do need to continue that down the rest of the way to kind of close it off, so everything forward in there is just going to be storage from the cockpit. But once the bulkhead goes in, I think he has a line drawn there, you can see, then I can begin fairing this space. Although we're going to have a headboard back there, don't have to worry about that area, but I'm going to have to do that and what comes down there. So lots of work for me, yay! And then, of course, turning our attention to the shared wet head at the midsection of the boat here on the guest hull. Unfortunately, no lights in here, so you have to bear with me. So you can see our beautiful Vitas toilet in there. What I'm hoping to do is also fair out the dagger board case here, and there may still be some glassing that runs on the outboard hull there to just like kind of like hide pipes and different things. So hopefully Matt will be able to do that. I can start fairing all of that out. And then below the floor here, hopefully we can start to get coats of bilge paint in there and put in the shower sumps and other plumbing items, which hopefully everybody started to get interested in that, because I think we have definitely shown enough glassing and fairing to last a lifetime. Continuing forward, one of my projects right away is going to be fairing this outboard side of the hull here. So you probably saw me before working on these shelves. Just going to use that as extra pantry space. And then down there you can see what's going to be the fuel lines for our diesel engine on the port side. What Matt installed just the other day is he did a slight mold to match the line of where our hull kind of like curves up there, so hopefully that makes fairing easier for me. And then I just have to kind of like blend down to where the window cutout will be, and then up toward the top, which again, that seam won't have to be perfect because we're going to have the drop down overhead. And again, very sorry for poor lighting in this area, but yep, that is my next project as soon as we get home from our trip. Which now, final destination on our tour leads us to the forward bunk here, which you probably saw me working in a lot over last winter and into the spring. Same thing as in our master head. I have been fairing these cabinets for months and months. They are just about done. Few little like coves that need to be touched up, maybe a couple of other spots, but that should be able to get primer on it soon, as well as the structural bulkhead 4 here, which runs transverse across this bunk area. And one of the things Matt has done a month or two ago, can't quite tell anymore because time just flies by as we're doing this Groundhog Day of this boat build every single day, is that this structural webbing has now been put in place just below where the window is. I think I was waiting on that to go in before I could start fairing, but once again, since it's easily enough for me to kind of just like put a little tarp over the door here, I can heat this area throughout the entire winter. Even if it's freezing outside, I can have a workable temperature in here, so I never really rushed myself on getting back to these spots because I can do this any time of the year, whereas areas kind of out here, a little bit harder to heat. So that is what I'm going to be focusing on as well through November and December, is just getting these walls here faired out and getting them primed, which means once I do that, and then once I finish the cabinets and the areas like a little below there, I feel like I've shown them before, there's kind of like a false bottom in these, which is going to allow Matt to run electrical through the chamfered panel. Can start that going. Sun is starting to go down. I'm losing my light. Again, we love this set of lights we're able to install through all of our hulls once we started getting decks and cabin tops on. Means that even when the sun goes down at like 4:45 p.m. here, we can keep working into the night as long as we can heat the areas. So that is kind of where we're at so far compared to the production version, what will eventually be, and what we're hoping to cover this winter. So just let us know what you think, and as we're getting prepared for these projects, if you have any tips that could kind of speed along our process, we're always so glad to hear them. And yeah, when spring comes, kind of open up the doors outside the tent, maybe work on a little bit of exterior stuff again, but really just get moving to hopefully get ourselves in the water and cruising again as soon as possible.
Give me your freedom. Whoa, yeah, me to pieces. Yeah, I need it. Want your pandemonium. Life is so easy. Whoa, you love me to pieces. Yeah, I need it. Want your pandemonium.